Okay. Tēnā koutou katoa. Hey everybody, I'm Reid from the Upper Hutt Library Heritage Team. This is my fellow team member Lizzie, and this is Tracey, who, as mentioned before, has sadly left us, is now curator at Waitaki Museum in Oamaru, so she'll be presenting by a pre-recorded video. And what we're going to be talking about today is this, which is an exhibition we put on last year for the Wellington Region Heritage Festival. Oh, before I go any further, that threw me off, but I would like to say we'd like to acknowledge Taranaki Whanui ki te Opoko, te Ika Maui, and Ngāti Toa as mana whenua for the Wellington and Hutt Valley regions. Okay, so this exhibition that we're going to talk about told the story of a period here's some slides of the exhibition, and it told the story about a period in the latter half of last century when Upper Hutt became one of New Zealand's premier manufacturing centres. Prior to this time, Upper Hutt had instead been a small farming community on the outskirts of Wellington, but in the years immediately following the Second World War, it underwent this very rapid period of suburbanization and industrialization. Upper Hutt's industrial era was kick-started by the establishment of the Dunlop tire factory there in 1948, and further anchored in the mid-60s when General Motors moved their car assembly plant there. As well as the automotive industry, numerous other manufacturing businesses set up shop in Upper Hutt, including those from the plastics and garment industry. Coca-Cola bottled their soft drink there. Brian and May made their Beehive matches there. And the telecommunications giant, yeah, I know, right? The telecommunications giant STC, later Alcatel, produced a range of electronic goods, including all those push-button phones that people throughout New Zealand used back in the 80s and 90s, and that's something I'll come back to later. There were indeed factories everywhere, and understandably, locals looked forward to a long-term future as an industrial powerhouse. But alas, that was not to be. Major shifts in economic policy in the closing decades of the century eventually led to virtually all of these local factories shutting down, and Upper Hutt's industrial era ended as rapidly as it had begun. To put things in terms of this year's NDF conference theme then, our exhibition was about trying to convey a sense of the profound impact that this double transformation from small rural town to industrial city to post-industrial one had on our community and the physical, social, and cultural space we occupy today. Even more pertinent to this Paurangi theme, though, our presentation today is about our efforts as a small cultural heritage team attached to a small public library with very limited resources to have as big an impact as we possibly can, getting local people learning about and engaging with our district's past. And of course, one of the means we've relied upon to try and punch above our weight in this way has been digital technology. Way back in 2012, we were the first library to use Recollect to create an accessible online interactive archives, and this site remains at the core of our activities. However, we've also always endeavored to complement this digital side of our work with real-world forms of engagement, such as holding heritage events within our community. Our aim has always been to try and move back and forth between physical space and virtual space in ways that mutually reinforce our outreach, access, and collection development activities. That approach was reflected in our City of Industry project. And I'm going to now turn over to Tracey, who may be a bit hard to hear, hopefully not, and she's going to explain how we use social media to get this project started.
As Reid mentioned, we had this idea to celebrate Upper Hutt's industrial heritage during the exhibition. There was just a wee little bit of a challenge. While we were excited about the concept, we realised we didn't actually have a lot of material to showcase. In fact, there were some pretty significant knowledge gaps. We had these really great images, but not much more. So we started thinking, where could we find the answers? Who would have the missing pieces of the puzzle? And that's when we realised the community we serve likely held much of this knowledge, and they probably had artefacts hidden away too. So how could we tap into that? How could we bring those pieces together and build our exhibition? And remember, we saw this exhibition as more than just a chance to display items. It was an opportunity for us to add to our collection and to engage with people in a way that felt meaningful to us. And it also aligned with our ongoing plan to conduct more oral histories, a goal that we'd set for the last 3 years, but you know how it goes. This exhibition gave us that drive we needed while providing a framework to help make it manageable. So, how did we begin sourcing this knowledge? At that time, I was running our social media, and our Upper Hutt Heritage Facebook page was doing okay in terms of engagement, but a big part of that was due to the local nostalgia page sharing our posts. We were already using Facebook to crowdsource metadata for our photographic collection, so we thought, why not try the same approach to gather oral histories and artifacts? I'd scheduled a few posts. I reached out to Fiona, who ran the other Facebook group, and asked her if she could share the posts and help promote our call for community participation. And then we waited. We weren't really sure what to expect. Sometimes social media posts can get lost in the algorithm. And we would have been happy if we just got 1 or 2 replies. But what happened actually blew us away. We received a huge number of responses. People were coming into the library to speak with us, and many were eager to be interviewed. We got some fantastic leads, including one former active union member who had worked at General Motors. He not only shared his memories of the union's role at the factory, but he also brought in memorabilia. He'd even sneaked a camera into the factory and taken photographs. So social media really did help us connect with people, collect their stories, and gather artifacts. It massively enriched our knowledge and our collection, while also helping us reach new audiences. So, Reid, Lizzie and I all took turns conducting the oral histories, but of course, we didn't want to just record these stories. We needed to make them accessible and engaging, so we decided to turn them into short video reels, mixing the audio with photos and video clips to bring everything to life. And having done a film page back in 2008, naturally, I was an obvious choice to edit these oral histories into short films. And for anyone working in smaller institutions, you know how often we have to get creative with limited access to fancy, expensive software. For instance, to create basic transcripts with timestamps, we use Word's transcribe feature. It's not perfect, but it did the job well enough for me to find the parts I needed in each audio file for editing.
Oh, she's over.
I was lucky enough, though, to get access to Audacity, which I used to trim down some of the longer audio files. And then, and here's where it gets interesting, I used Canva to edit the videos. Yes, Canva. You might be surprised, but it was actually perfect for what we needed. Not only was it something most library staff had access to, but it was super easy to use. I'd already used it to make short reels for the library's Instagram and Facebook stories, so it just felt like the right tool for the job. In the end, the bite-sized videos were a hit. People really enjoyed them. But now I'm going to pass you over to Reid, who's going to talk about how we decided to present these videos in a way that had a unique connection to Upper Hutt and tied in with our exhibition theme.
Okay, thanks, Tracey. Got my cue this time. Before talking about that AV device that Tracey just referred to, I'll say a very quick word about our display panels. I put these together in Photoshop, which turned out to be a bit of a rookie's mistake because working at this size, it meant dealing with these absolutely ginormous file sizes that regularly crashed my computer. So next time I'll use InDesign, which is what everybody told me I should be using in the first place anyway. Some of the panels we made were designed to be attached to walls, like these factory roof-shaped ones printed on ADM. Others, though, which we painted on core flute, were stuck together to create freestanding columns. These had the added advantage of being easily portable. This was useful because it was always our intent to try and reuse our display elsewhere after the library exhibition had closed. Okay, so as mentioned, our exhibition also incorporated an AV device that enabled visitors to select and watch the films Tracey had made. We'd made such a device previously for an exhibition we'd done back in 2016, and these are a couple of old slides from an old NDF presentation I did. This exhibition used this device that we made for this used a Raspberry Pi mini computer, which you can purchase for around $60. When I say we did this, I should make clear here that as a small team, we've often relied on the generosity of others, not just our local community, but also friends and family, to access the knowledge and skills needed for any particular project. And in this case, it was my brother-in-law, a bit of a tech whiz, who provided the necessary expertise. We drew on his services again for this exhibition, but this time we updated the design, and that was partly because our exhibition was going to be held in open space within our library, meaning we needed some kind of earpiece to prevent noise from the audio disturbing others. It was actually my sister who came up with the idea of using one of those push-button phones I mentioned earlier for this purpose. This was obviously a great idea because it not only incorporated an artifact from Upper Hutt's industrial past, but also deployed this item as a practical means for delivering information and engaging people with the technology of a previous era. Here's a couple of slides my brother-in-law made, which I sort of think I understand, that shows how he did this. Basically, he used two Raspberry Pis connected together via Wi-Fi, with one inserted inside the phone and the other attached to a monitor. The pins for the Raspberry Pi inside the phone were mapped onto the keypad buttons of its circuit board. These in turn corresponded to individual films uploaded to the other mini computer. By simply pressing a number on the keypad corresponding to the film you want to watch, a film would start playing on the monitor with the audio coming through the phone's handset. The phone device was one of the hits of our City of Industry exhibition, which ran for a month in our library at the end of last year. It attracted plenty of visitors and lots of great feedback. Once the exhibition was over, we created a touring version of it. We installed this at Haratonga College for this year's first term, and just last Friday we moved it to another local school for the second term. And we're currently exploring other options, such as taking it around Upper Hutt rest homes. Okay, that's all from me. Now over to you, Lizzie.
Right, thank you, Reid. So once the exhibition was dismantled from the library and off touring around Upper Hutt schools, this could have been the end of the project. However, we saw it as an opportunity to repackage it. During our call-outs for information on social media, we had several people who expressed that they really wanted to visit the exhibition, but either no longer lived in Upper Hutt or were away during its run. So what could we do for them? With these people in mind, the two key goals that we set for the post-exhibition plan were to document the objects, most of which were on loan, and digitally present the information that we had gathered. We landed on two modes for achieving these objectives. Firstly, documenting the objects on our Community Archives website, and additionally presenting the exhibition in digital form using a tool called Story Maps. Upper Hutt Recollect has now been running for around 13 years and is firmly embedded in our operations. We use Recollect both as a digital outreach tool and collection management system for our community archive. Our priorities have always been accessibility and community engagement, and Recollect has been instrumental in providing these services. To document these objects, we needed to take photographs of them. I think this image here reflects the reality of our work. Things can be a little chaotic and messy behind the scenes at times, and you can see that we have a pretty makeshift imaging setup. This is me in our open plan office space, photographing one of the plastic toy sets that were produced in Upper Hutt in the 70s and 80s. This was a fun part of the project, as Reid and I got to assemble the sets ready for display, and this activity also served as a kind of welcome stress reliever before the opening of the show. We inherited the lightbox from the library's social media team a while back, and although not perfect, it suits our needs, and I'm pretty happy with the results that we have. After photographing the items and processing the images in Photoshop, I accessioned the items into Recollect and built a digital collection. This is still a work in progress, but when it's finished, all the items that were on display will be accessible there. And so, through Recollect, we captured all the objects and presented them as digital collection items. However, the value in the exhibition was in the personal stories and the overarching narrative that we'd put together, communicated through text and photographs. So what happens to these? Something that we've been experimenting with for the past few years has been a narrative tool called Story Maps. Story Maps is part of a suite of geospatial software programs that are utilised by council spatial teams across the region. It is used for infrastructure planning and emergency management. However, we saw the potential to apply it as a heritage tool. Story Maps provides a platform that serves as a kind of digital version of the physical panels, retaining the narrative of Upper Hutt's industrial story. Here we have the story map that I've been building over the past few months. I found the tool to be very intuitive, and this translates to easy navigation as a user. It was very customizable for our own needs and presents a modern and visually appealing interface. The program promotes interactivity by allowing you to embed images, video, audio, and mapping software into the page. In addition to the story map, we plan to create another two for this project. One will present Tracey's short films as a collection, and the other will showcase an interactive map displaying the locations of past factories. Where we can, we will have image sliders that show the industrial sites as they were then and now. And this is one here from a previous project that we worked on. We also like that the website can direct users to our Recollect site through the attribution of an image. I've just pasted the URL to the collection item here, and it links straight to it for a user to find out more. The interface is flexible when displayed on the different devices that we use in our everyday lives by automatically adjusting for desktop or mobile viewing. And section headings make it easy to navigate to a specific area of interest, which are located in the top ribbon here. As a digital tool, a huge draw for us is the freedom to make edits and additions whenever we like. For instance, if we gather more information or photographs, we can always add them after publishing the story map. This digital space doesn't have the physical restrictions that the exhibition panels had, which allows the project to continually grow and expand. Story Maps has made Upper Hutt City of Industry available to a much broader audience and has ensured that it is accessible far beyond the closing of the exhibition. So bringing us back to this year's NDF theme, we wanted this project that was so community-driven to have a lasting impact, and we feel that the combination of digital technologies that we have implemented have empowered these stories to reverberate outside of the walls of our library. Ngā mihi nui.
Thanks so much for your talk. It was actually just such an ingenious use of existing software packaging. Well done. So, for anyone that hasn't found this out yet, on your lanyard there's a Q&A QR code at the back. So if you go into that now and you want to ask Reid and also Lizzie a question, please do. We will need you to talk into the mic though, so don't be shy. Once you get into Slido, you just need to choose breakout 1A, and it's the waterfront room.
I ask one more before.
Can you just... I was about to say it, so it's good. Yeah.
So Hamilton City Libraries, we've got lots of photos of empty buildings, but you've got all the wonderful photos of people. Did that come in the collection already, or did that come from the community?
A lot of those came from the community. You're right, and that's excellent question, because that is an issue, that you get just the buildings but no sense of who was there. But also it's surprising how much, like I mentioned, Coca-Cola was a big factory there, bottling there. We couldn't find a single image because these, of course, are private establishments, and and even people who ran family businesses it's surprising how little they documented it. So it's a shame that so much has been lost, but we were thrilled with what we did make it acquire.
Nothing else digitally, so anyone else sticking their hand up, not wanting to interact with technology? Gareth. Old school is the best school.
Thank you so much for the presentation. I'm wondering what kind of, or was there any verification on user comments on social media in terms of kind of the accuracy of what was being said?
I think a lot of those ones were actually people that had objects. Sorry, yeah. A lot of those ones were people that had objects that they'd collected, so we were able to personally meet them and talk to them and kind of verify that they did actually work there or knew someone that worked there. So that worked out really well. That was actually the main way we got any of the objects that we had on display, because we didn't have any in our archives because we're more of a library that has documents and photographs, so that was a huge part of it.
And I'd say the other thing is that social media, and I'm not a huge fan of social media myself, but it is kind of self-policing. You know, those community sites, if you put something up and it's wrong, people will tell you it's wrong. And of course we did do due diligence and follow up. You know, you just got somebody said something, we didn't necessarily take it as so, but yeah.
Any other questions from the room? I've got a quick one. I just wanted to ask you about broadening your audience. So were there any particular groups that you found you hadn't reached before that this was really effective with for breaking barriers down?
I'd say that, which also came into the touring exhibition that we were able to do, was having resources for kids, especially Upper Hutt kids, who a lot of them don't know a lot of their own history living there. And so even just the other week we were setting it up at a new school and we heard some of the kids talking, and some of them didn't even know what Dunlops was, and that's quite shocking to people who have been there for a few decades and lived it. So it's quite, that was a new kind of audience that we were happy to bring the exhibition to.
Yeah. And this isn't so much audience, but I know while I'd been there, I'd known about this industrial history, and I'd known there'd been quite strong unions there, but we had absolutely nothing in our collection. And being able to, running this exhibition, we were able to connect with that group of people and make some really good contacts. So that was really useful for us.
I actually do have one here. And it kind of follows on from what you were saying. So did you receive any interest or help from the old company owners of the factories? So Fletcher's, who took over many early small companies and now have their own archive?
I got onto Fletcher's archive. I think one that was really heavily documented was Hume's Pipeworks, which we didn't have anything on before that. So that archive really helped, and there's just so many images. I think it's more, that archive was Hutt Valley in general, so you kind of had to pick through and make sure which ones were Upper Hutt and Lower Hutt. But that was something that I stumbled across that I'd never known before.
And, you know, there were business owners who came and wanted to talk about their factories, and that was really, really interesting. But one thing I will say is Dunlops, even prior to this exhibition, we have a very large Dunlop archives, but we've acquired it by default because when the factory closed down, which had become South Pacific Tires, they just left all the employees collected archives, but nobody wanted them. So they came to us. So that was one of the things there. We have this massive collection of archives about tires if you want to find them somewhere.